to call this meeting of the Riverside City Council to order for Thursday, September 6, 2012. The work session. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Campbell? Here. Mr. Kirk?
Here.
Mr. Denning?
Here.
Mr. Follenkamp? Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Follenkamp did write me an email that his mother is very ill again and had a very major surgery today, so he asked that we excuse him. So is there a motion to do so?
Make a motion to excuse. Second.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Denning, seconded by Mr. Schock. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. There is a revised agenda here, so that is the agenda we would be going by tonight. Is there approval of that revised agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Denning, seconded by Mr. Schock to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to our meeting. And if anyone wants to speak on any items, on work session items, or any of the public comment agenda items, or other items, please fill out a sheet in the back, and we will try to get to you when we get to that part of the meeting, or for the work session when we have that item to discuss. So we'll go right into the work session items. Mr. Manager, you want to talk about the Center of Flight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to defer the introduction of this particular work session item to Economic Development Director, Mr. Murray.
Thank you very much. Well, who we have here today is NIA. It's a local company, but it's international in its scope. It is the largest commercial realtor in the world. The idea, the purpose of them being here is to list the 5 acres of ground on Center of Flight that we had originally designated for the Job Ready Sites building. So they're marketing not only the acreage, but also the concept of investing in an office building right outside the front gate of Wright Path. I don't want to lead you to believe in any shape or form that there is somebody waiting to do this. The idea is these people are going to market that property internationally. They're going to market the building concept internationally. We are trying to throw as large a net as possible, as widely as possible, to attract someone to that site. So I'll leave it that to Russ Mass, who is the principal of NAI. Dave.
Welcome, Mr. Mass.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate your
Mayor.
comment.
I appreciate, members of the council, we appreciate the opportunity to be with you this evening and talk about your plans for development. I've got a couple of people with that I'd like to introduce to you. 3 of them out of the offices. Ed Patterson, he's one of the senior associates in the office. Ed's got a long track record with development, site acquisition. Marvin Puckett, same thing. He's relatively new with the office. I recruited him from another firm, so we're always looking. And Emmy Juergens is the administrative assistant who's going to work with us on the project if you deem fit for us to move forward with the project. We had a little technical glitch with the laptop, so I'm probably going to, you want to chair, Amy? You want to, because if you stand, it might be hard for people to see. You're not short like I am, so you can't. The first thing I'd like to do is maybe go back a little bit historically, and that is, I've been around the city of Dayton for quite some time. I came here in '67 and had various jobs and eventually moved into commercial real estate. And one of a couple of jobs early on were in Riverside. One of them was when USF Holland, or TMT, was thinking about moving from the area, and we were brought on board to try to keep that entire group and facility in Riverside, and we did that by acquiring and developing out the old drive-in theater on Valley. And then subsequent to that relocation by Holland, we sold their old truck terminal to a group out of California who was a short-haul railroad owner, but they were picking up transportation facilities around the country. And then Beyond that, we've done several other things. I worked with Mechanical Systems of Dayton to relocate into new facilities. The Union Hall, we represented the union in the sale of their building over on Valley, auto salespeople. Up to today, just kind of basic feeling on who we have for clients and who we're working for. I think the two big ones in town is PNC Bank. We represent them in Southwest Ohio. And the other one is HTA, which is the Healthcare REIT, which is a brand new publicly traded REIT in the country. What I want to accomplish tonight, and I feel confident that we can kind of put this together so you understand what NAI is. We're part of a large footprint around the world. Emmy, if you can kind of, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, yeah, let me just take that, break that real quick. I don't know. But it does work. First off, what I want to do is introduce to you some of the moving parts within NAI. There's a group called C3. We'll talk about them. It's a very large group. They service distressed real estate. We'll talk about an ISG team, which is investment sales group team. We'll talk about NAI Global. And you can just kind of run through the list. We'll explain in detail as we go through. We'll have books for you at the conclusion of the presentation that'll have these slides with you. So if you want to catch notes as you go along, please do that, and then we'll get the books to you. Okay. Let's talk for a minute. I'm going to borrow somebody's water here. Oh, beautiful. C3 Capital is a primary and special loan servicer in the U.S. They're currently working with about $160 billion in commercial real estate and commercial real estate notes. We work with them. They are part of NAI Global. Okay. A second part of NAI Global is the investment sales group. There's 150 top people around the world. They handle about $10 billion in investment transactions this year. Down here at the bottom is kind of a list or a overview of what they've done, which is the FBI headquarters in Little Rock, Department of Energy, Law Enforcement Center in North Carolina, Department of Justice facilities, and so on. These are probably the hardest driving group of investment real estate sales agents and brokers in the country. Okay. Just a feel for what's going on for NAI. This is a little blurred, it's not your eyes. I hope it's not mine, I'm getting a little older. But this is where the offices are located around the world that are all affiliated with NAI Global. Okay. A little basic information. I'm just going to go from top left kind of across. 578, we're in 55 countries, 350 offices around the world, 45 million in annual transactions. We're a private company. We're in the top 5 in the world. We have presence in 47 of the states. There's 5,000 of us that fall under the NAI umbrella, and we've got some pretty slick award-winning technology, which we may touch on a little later. Okay. Kind of a sampling of clients that we work with. Anybody from Gillette to U.S. Postal Services to Midas to IKEA to Hertz to Pepsi, and that's only a partial list that will kind of give you a feel for the level of service that we provide. Okay. Around the country, one of the things that makes us large and influential in the real estate field is the presence in a vast majority of the communities. We've got 188 offices around the United States, and that, I'll explain to you how that fits in with the plan that we have on marketing. Okay. A little background on NAI Dayton, which is what we are, but we're all part of that bigger picture of Global and C3. The brokers average about 20 years of experience. We've done over $1 billion in transactions, which brings a lot of experience to the table. We manage about 1.5 million square feet of commercial and industrial property 16 agents and brokers, largest in the region, and probably within the next 30 days, we'll have another broker on board with us. So we enjoy the business and we appreciate the growth. How do we work? I don't know, part of my background is working with defense contractors in black box environments and trying to bring technology from early stages into commercialization and finish off development and bring companies into a whole different realm. Part of that, in that process, I learned that the smartest thing you can do is start it with an as-is assessment, which we've done with the real estate that you've got, looked at Riverside, looked at the area, looked at what's going on, looked at what's worked, what hasn't worked. From that, then we go into a problem-solving model, which is determine how we can integrate the owner experience or your experience in, so we have a better understanding, because there's individual things that you're aware of that we're not aware of. So we're looking for that, integrate our local and national experience into that, and then try to leverage our local and national relationships and leverage the NAI global relationships to client requirements. And then from that, our purpose, the end game, is to convert these concepts into projects, which means results for you. Okay, just a real quick market assessment. What do you have and what do you want? We know what you have, we know where we're starting. The keys then are, what do you want? And go ahead. You brought on Forseti and Wolpert and several people, and go ahead, Amy, you can just kind of drop those in. So you've got a preliminary plan on what you're looking for. We've gone through that. Here's a breakdown on the site specific that we're talking, I'm sorry. I mean,
You're fine, you're fine.
that we were talking about, and then just building concepts. We don't know, nor do you actually know what the building's gonna look like, but we're just gonna throw a couple out there to kind of give you some ideas from traditional to more modern type things that make particular statements around the Air Force Museum and that. So that's what we're after. That's the end game. That's what we're all looking for. Okay. Again, part of that as-is assessment is just to look at what's happened in the area. You've got most of the development within a 6-mile radius of this area has been by one broker, one development company. Historically, and these graphs are in there to be a little easier to read, I apologize for that. The vacancy rate, and here's 2009, 11, here's the current quarter. You can see where vacancy rates were down, and then with the economy kind of changing, they're way back up, and they're starting to come back down again, which is a good sign. Your lease rates, the green line, your vacancy is about 14%, your lease rates are about $22 a foot. That'll kind of determine what you can do with the building. We can't put a user into the building and expect them to pay over what market is, and we can't get an investor to build it for a user if we're over market. So we have to set some meets and bounds, for lack of a better word, on where we go price point. Okay. Rental rates, just a little more detail. The forecast, which is one thing that we're pretty optimistic with, lower right-hand corner, the red line talks about vacancies. Again, once I get my dance down here, I won't walk in front of the screen with you. Vacancies, they anticipate over the next couple of years through 14, going way back down, and the requirement then for additional buildings to come up. So we think we're in the right place at the right time with the curve, but nobody knows in this economy what overall direction it's going to take. Okay. How do we get there? Like I mentioned earlier, it's marketing. We sat down and we do a preliminary SWOT analysis, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, factoring in how the others see Riverside and how Riverside views their future. Those are important questions to all of us. Okay. What we do with that is we look at it, then we try to take advantage and leverage the opportunities or threats within the business community. And that would include the investors and developers, and what we're looking to take advantage of is not only the base, the museum, the shuttle trainer, the military reunions, the possibility of signage for a corporation on the building, corporate presence in the area. We need to get on their radar, and at the same time, maybe look for a tenant who would be interested in finding an investor. You've got two types of tenants out there. One is gonna be a tenant who's an owner and tenant in the building, the other is gonna be just a plain tenant, and their business model is not to own real estate. That is not their business model, they put their dollars into human resources, which is one of the keys of the base activity. That's why you see a lot of movement around. Okay. Related activity for NAI Global. Here again, I'm talking about the big picture, the 350 offices and 5,000 agents working around the country. Since 2006, we've put together 95 real estate transactions with the top 25 award recipients at Right Path. Globe has provided services to over 95,000 defense, development, Air Force, Army, research type companies since 2006. So we've got broad experience in there. A couple of things we look at on a more local level is, if you haven't taken a look at some of these books, it may be interesting and prove valuable to you. 6 Degrees of Separation, and those are pretty simple. The book really boils down to, if I need to get a hold of somebody, anybody in the world, I can probably accomplish it by 6 connections with people, and I can get to that person. And what we look at is with 350 offices, 5,000 people out there, and a lot of people that are around technology, military issues or whatever, that we've got a lot of avenues in to take care of trying to shorten that line down and get more direct communications with the people that are interested or should be interested in the area. Memberships of organizations we belong to. There's another thing, I'm not gonna go into detail, but it's gaming theory for business. If you've heard of decision trees or branching the networks, trying to, you get down to the minutiae and you go, 10% of the decision going in this direction, and if they do that, then 2% can go that way. The gaming theory for business is relatively simple. It says either they're gonna take this option or this option. This doesn't look like a good one, so they're gonna take this one, which is what we kind of work off with. So, good example is, do you want to lease, do you want to own? Okay, well, we know from working with the defense contractors whether their business model is lease or own. So why waste them with conversation that isn't even going to get up on the radar? So, I talked about the connections again. NAI Hiffman, they're in Boston. I've been up there, I met with them. I know people have been in their offices for years, have moved out to California. They were top producers. We stay in contact with these people over extended period of times. Michael and Evan are both involved in what's going on. Evan is the broker that actually calls on Hanscom Air Force Base, and he's involved in their technology and new manufacturing issues. When I talked to Evan about the project, he said it's kind of interesting. He said, because what we found is with some of the stuff leaving Hanscom coming to Dayton, that MIT has now become a little more engaged with the military out here, and they're going after a lot of R&D money. So we know now that there's a couple of competing entities, which would be MIT and Hansford operations, and we've got Wright State, UD, and the Dayton operation. So that's something we need to factor into to look to bring people into town. And like I said, we're in constant communication with them. I sent them a rapid information the other day just on what's going on around Dayton to get some additional feedback. Okay. Relevant experience, and here we're talking on a local basis. Just going to run through them real quick. Kettering Medical Center, last year we worked with them to acquire over 100 acres of land down around Hamilton. It was a $11.5 million transaction, one of the top 20 transactions in the southwest corner of Ohio. We sold land to Miami Valley Hospital. The owners tried to sell it to them for years and years. Couldn't get a deal with them. We got involved and it worked. Myself and one other agent did the job center several years ago. If you've ever been, it used to be a warehouse. The floors were unbelievable because the floors then, as a result, just undulated. It was perfect for an indoor skate park or something like that, because the levels of the floor would vary between floor level and up here. So if you had kids in there, they'd have a great time, but it was a beat-up old warehouse, and if you've been down there, you know what they did to convert that thing and made it into a very functional operation. And from what I understand, it's been recognized around the country as one of the best of the best. So I kind of take a lot of personal pleasure in being involved in that one. Good Samaritan North, we worked with the hospital on that to acquire the 20 acres around the site up in Englewood. They knew that, you know, healthcare issues are going to be important over the next 15, 20 years, and they just wanted to control that land, so we got involved in that. Middletown Hospital, the tall guy over there that stood up first, Ed, was involved in that one. That was the purchase of 100 acres of land, and that was a $141 million facility that went up down there. GSA, Social Security offices, these are government contracts to come out. The government is looking to lease space. You've got to put together a bid. The bid packet is about that thick, about 2 inches thick. Scary to death, but it's actually, from start to finish, when that bid package is done, it actually converts into a lease. Parties sign off and your lease is done. Kettering Hospital, another purchase, 60 acres of land in Lebanon for the Corwin Nixon Medical Center. Skoda, which was they are the largest European trolley manufacturer. They won the bid here with Dayton, with the RTA to build the trolleys. We brought them into town and found the location for them. We thought we were going to keep them. This was one of the bad stories. We get through most of the build out for the Dayton requirement. There's a bid that comes out from California. The bid said, if you're going to respond to this, you're going to have a test track in California. So they wanted to go after the entire North American market for electric trolleys. That was their business plan. So when they bid it, they had to bid and factor in the cost of a test track for the trolleys. They had to make sure they were safe or whatever. So we lost them. I mean, it's just, these are the experience you don't like to talk about, but believe me, you learn a lot from that as you go along. Wright State Physicians, this is just a kind of a war story. They were going into one of the buildings that we represented. The cable people wanted to hold them hostage for about $30,000 to get medical imaging piped into their particular suite. We got a hold of some people that provide cable as a competing, you know, one of the competing companies. We sat down and we were able to take care of it for about $5,000. So, you know, we don't, I can see that somebody, you guys have been that route, you understand how that goes. So our services include more than just the real estate side. It's problem solving and trying to do the right thing for the right people. Go ahead. Relationships. I'm going to run through them real quick. We have breakfast with the director of Grandview once a week. Kettering Medical Center lawyer is a personal friend of ours, and we catch up with him a couple of times during the year. We just got asked by one of the GM suppliers Friday to find a site here in Dayton for sequencing parts. We found that Tuesday. We turned it around over the holiday. Tuesday they had the entire list of possibilities along with all the costing information. So now it's kind of, excuse me, but knock on wood, and we hope our client gets the award, the contract. Lunch with the director of Dayton's Research Institute. Kind of a funny story. Let me give you one with that. I didn't know the director until about 8 years ago, something like that. And I was approached by a friend at Northrop Grumman, and what they wanted to do was, following 9/11, the commission determined that one of the biggest threats to the country was the identification that the hijackers were able to get, which was all phony. So the 9/11 commission then recommended that they change the driver's license, the way to issue it and monitor it and everything else. So we brought together Northrop Grumman, CDO, who's right here in Riverside, the University of Dayton, Standard Register, and a couple other firms, and we went after the national contract contract for all the driver's licenses in the country. We wanted to produce them here. NCR was involved in it. They had some very high technology that was being used over in Europe to keep counterfeit money from going into the ATMs as they were converting to the euro. And unfortunately, the federal government didn't provide any money to the states. The whole idea kind of tripped, and now there's about 3 or 4 states. But the whole idea was to get legitimate ID, and we were able to put together, that's probably not a proprietary secret or anything at this point, but we were able to put together a package where your driver's license would have been about the only document that you would have been required to carry. It was going to be a rapid pass to get on the airlines. You pay extra to get coding on that thing. We worked with the Dayton Airport to make that happen. They were all ramped up to do that, but they couldn't find money to run the rest of the operations for us to get back and improve it with all the airline carriers that were coming in here. It would have been, in essence, your bank card, your ATM, your credit card, or whatever, because all of it was encoded. And the encryption stuff that NCR has that they're using on the euro couldn't be, well, I'd say can't be, but the odds of cracking it were minuscule. And the way it was set up, within about that amount of time, they could change how that encryption was read, and whoever they thought had cracked it, or if there was an indication that it got cracked for some reason, it could be changed that quick, and you wouldn't have to do anything. So it was one card you carry around, and it would provide you with everything. So that was one that failed, and I got off track, and I apologize for that. Let's not worry about the rest of them, and we'll go ahead with a marketing plan. We're gonna produce brochures. We're gonna contact by mail. We're gonna contact by email. The internet's out there. We're gonna run through this because these are more of the minutia. This, let me just take a minute, and we're marketing the Right Point buildings. I mentioned that earlier. They are stressed, de-stressed real estate. This is just a flyer, and I'm, for lack of a better word, I'm gonna call it a teaser flyer. But that's the start of information that goes out when we get involved in listings to get people's attention. Now, on the Right Point buildings, any information that we got, and there were 5,000 people contacted, 5,000 investors around the world that were contacted in regard to acquiring these buildings. They were required to sign a confidentiality form before they could get access to privilege information in regard to income, tenant information, and all that. Maybe when, at some point, I'd be happy to share that with you, but there's a lot of confidential information, and at this point, I don't feel comfortable putting that out or whatever. So if you'd like to see it, I'd be more than happy to show you that. It's about a 30-page document that breaks down all the detail on the building. So if you're looking at it as an investor, you understand exactly what's going on. Again, the implementation. I think the important thing on this page, 2 things. Down in the green where it talks about online resources, these are the primary locations where marketing, commercial real estate happens. Anything from our website to LoopNet to CoStar to the Dayton Commercial Industrial Committee's software system. I chair that committee. I've chaired it on and off now for about 10 years. We are involved in developing that, so that's a local market type thing. And then the NAI Global website. Up at the top where we talk about international and national investors, developers associated with NAI Global activity. We talked earlier about technology. We track people, everybody that we work with, we track in a system that is shared, it's pooled between all the 350 offices. So if I'm looking for an in with XYZ company, and somebody else in one of those 350 offices has done business with that company, I can get a hold of that broker and see if I can get a door open and get in. Now, we use other ways to get past gatekeepers, but that's getting to be more challenging because people just have time to talk anymore, so, okay. Target marketing, just real quick, the center, hold me down here. Defense contractors, general office users, aerospace, medicine use and training. We had an inquiry come out here in the past month. Air Force was looking for a training facility. It was supposed to be designated for the city of Kettering. We took a shot at trying to change it, didn't work, but those opportunities are out there for that type of operation. Go ahead. This is just a kind of a PERT or a timeline chart. The two boxes in green just show you where we are, but that's the first 6 months on working any project, just to give you an idea what we do to try and track and keep everything online. Go ahead, Amy. All right, the balance of this, let's just run through. I don't like showing my picture. Go ahead, just make that short. Okay, that's the guy talking. That's Ed. When I talked about the Middletown Hospital, Marvin, he can tell you a little bit about what he's done. I think the deal he just put together with Kettering Hospital and a couple other things here in town, digestive specialist, FedEx, just kind of an idea of where we're coming from and what we're bringing to the table. Okay, we can kind of close that. There you go. Let's just leave it at that one. That's a partial client list for this office. These are people that we work with, anything from Wells Fargo to Morgan Stanley to the General Services Administration to MedWorks to USF Holland today, the people that make chips, Montgomery County, even Victoria's Secret, believe it or not. They've got a call center here in town. So I'm going to kind of conclude with that. I've kind of mentioned to Marvin and Ed that, you know, any questions or whatever, that my expectation is if they've got answers, they'll participate. Because I'm not the sole owner of all the answers or direction or whatever, so don't be bashful in throwing questions out there. So let me kind of open it up and see if there's specific questions that you have. See if we can get those answered for you. Thank you.
Real quickly, you mentioned the average rental rate is $22
Mhm.
square foot. It even says something about $14. Is that like below?
Correct. It'll run between,
So we look at
it'll actually run between about 10, you know, the rough space that used to be small, you know, 1 and 2 man operations or whatever, they'll get down to $8 a foot. And then all the way up through the mid-20s for medical, law office and stuff like that. And then some of the rates then depend, some of them are quoted that include utilities and maintenance work, some of them are quoted otherwise. So it's kind of, and I hate to say this about the profession, but the real estate is kind of a weird duck. So if you go in to buy a car, okay, you got this, but you don't have tires. Well, we kind of quote it as, here's your rental rate, but we want to make sure that you've got utilities are in there, your maintenance is in there, your janitorial's in there, things like that. So that'll move the number plus the type of building that it's in. So downtown, Class A buildings, 20-ish or so.
What would you expect in the center of Thrive? What kind of, that'd be a Class A building, right?
It would be a Class A building, unique users in there. You've got a certain, Marvin, you want to kind of hit some stuff on cap rates and returns or?
Yeah, basically, a lot of things have changed the last 2.5, 3 years. Rent rates, financing. For example, started a project with Kettering Hospital for a build-to-suit project for about 25,000 square foot. At the time, we didn't know if we could get construction money. We didn't know if we could get anybody to finance the project at the end as an end result to take out the construction loans. So it took approximately 2.5 years of starting that project out. Originally, we thought the property was at a cap rate, return on investment of about 9.5. Today, that project is, we're looking at somewhere about a 7.5 cap rate. So it's just evolved that much. Things are changing, and what we have to do with this project is basically the first and foremost thing on everybody's mind is financial feasibility. It has to make sense. If it doesn't make financial feasibility, we'll never get it off the ground. So there's a couple of things, like you mentioned the center of flights and some of those things. We don't know what their budget constraints are. They may be a player, they may not be a player. But it's, we gotta make the numbers work first. And, nothing happens if we can't make the numbers work. There is a lot of good indication that cap rates, return on investments, are coming back for the investors. We feel like Ohio is a great opportunity for that. There's a lot of buyers from other states doing things, coming to Ohio to do those. But to answer your question, the people that come to us will tell us what their parameters are. And it's going to be up to us that whether we can fit them into this or not. So it is kind of it's a good thing, but it's also an uncertain thing. But the numbers have to work.
Okay, we'll give you an example. Say a 65,000 square foot building, Class A, triple net lease. What kind of money are we looking at per square foot? Over in our center of flight?
3-year lease or a 10-year lease?
Probably a 3-year lease.
Well, that's going to be a challenge because most investors, as you know, defense contractors, they usually have a 3-year lease and even want to buy it. So, realistically, that's probably not the most desirable thing for most investors.
No, it's not. But with the contractors coming in from the base and looking to locate off-site over there, if they don't get any more contracts or the contract's not renewed, they're basically
Well,
out of business.
Yeah, you're right, but at the same time, we have to look at guys like Macaulay Brown that have been in this area for how many years now? 20, 25 years? And how long has General Dynamics been in this industry? Prime example, the Ashford building on Colonel Glenn. Most of those tenants there have been, I think the newest one is about maybe 8 years old in that location, but they're on 3-year lease. We get a track record established, that changes the game a little bit.
And part of that, and your question relates to sequestering, I'm sure, because it's such a gray area for everybody at this point, but there are certain things that are viable at the base, otherwise we wouldn't be able to shake out what we've been able to hold to on BRAC. So the way it works, and I've been around the defense industry for a while, like I said, I was involved in technology transfer. The best way to look at this is that the government's going to put out the contracts. Now, whether it's your company that gets the contract or his company that gets the contract, you end up doing team agreements to where you're not burdened with all the human resources and you got the skill sets that he doesn't have and you complement each other. So within that, then there's movement within those operations. So sometimes you'll pick up the extra space in your building or he'll pick it up in another building. And that's where we feel that we've got some play, being able to look at people and create some of these things. The other thing we talked about, and it was just preliminary discussions with Bob, I don't know whether you know this or not, Courthouse Square, where the old courthouse sits, and you've got the meat tower, and you've got the old Elder Beerman building, and you've got what used to be the Dayton Power and Light building. That ground does not belong to those building owners. That ground is leased to the building owners. And it's on a ground lease, and they're good for 99 years or X number of years or whatever, in a pretty lucrative way. That gives you control, or in your situation, in their situation, that would give you control of the ground over the long haul, hold down that initial cost for an investor or someone coming in, and then the banking can come off of that. The airport, everything at the airport is a ground lease. It's a different breed of animal. The banks don't necessarily know how to finance it, but like in Marvin's discussion earlier with Kettering Hospital, Marvin represented the owners. Kettering wanted to move in because it's down by MCL cafeteria, which everybody that's a senior in Kettering seems to migrate over there to grab dinner at least a couple of times a week. So Kettering Hospital wanted to be down in that area. They wanted there's ways you can work through, and whatever the banking situation is, it just takes a little time to work through those. So it could be just a hybrid of what I talked about earlier. Maybe it would be a ground lease where someone coming in that needs the building and wants that presence, and then at some point, you could trigger a sale of the land to that particular party. So there's all kinds of different ways to structure it. It's just finding out what their business model is, what your comfort level is, where the banks are coming from, so you can find the dollars, and then put the puzzle together, and then you go forward. I mean, that's what, I point to a blank wall, but, the example was, Kettering Hospital. They bought the ground down in Hamilton, they bought it as the Kettering Health Network, but the ground actually went to Grandview Hospital for the DOs and everybody down around Hamilton. So there's all kinds of different ways to do it.
Thank you, Marvin, and,
Income tax is an issue too.
okay, so, there's no one else that's asked to, talk, so, any other questions from council? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Moss and
Thank you.
Marvin, and we appreciate, all your hard work, and,
Can you
we do have
Reject that.
legislation,
I'm keeping that one.
Oh,
we do have legislation coming up a little later, so, we'll deal with that when that gets here. All right. Next thing on the, thank you guys, thanks very, very much, welcome to stay, and we'll be getting to that later on. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the waste collection. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During council's last meeting, while enacting legislation related to assessments for the 2013 service, there were some questions and some concerns about exactly what options were available to the city with respect to waste collection, specifically with the additional service options in the city of Dayton in respect to staff's recommendation to seek bids for those services. So to give council the opportunity to discuss the matter one final time and understand those options and those multiple directions that were available to you, I did send an email memorandum to you, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, that highlighted exactly what issues were identified with Dayton Service over the last 5 years and why staff was recommending the bid process for this particular service, but also that the options were available with Dayton if council wanted to exercise those for the prices that were attached within the exhibit. So to that end, I did provide you that information. I did invite Mr. Stovall and Mr. Ritchie here from the city of Dayton to answer any questions that you might have regarding the information provided in the memorandum. So with that, sir, I'll report back to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, is there any questions for Mr. Stovall or Mr. Ritchie? Any council have any questions or concerns that we'd like to talk about? And then we need to know which direction the council wants to go.
We're looking to put it out for bid, aren't we?
We have that option, or we have the option for 2 more years of city of Dayton.
Or with 1 more year and put bid out in a reason, early enough so that we know what the number is before we go to the auditor.
Right.
Because I think part of our problem this year was that we had to go to the auditor before we knew what that final number was.
Right.
I don't know, where that issue came into play, but we really, to cut down on the, the situation and the art and our concern, we need that number before we go to the auditor, because that's what really caused most of the discussion, was that we were putting a number out there, and we were looking at what other communities about the same size were getting, what the cost was gonna be, and so we were guessing. We had nothing in concrete on what that number was. And I think we need to work more in what is real would like to suggest that we continue the Dayton contract for one more year, but that we get the bid out by, I don't know,
July or whatever.
well, I'm gonna say by May, so that we have the number by July, so that we can vote on the legislation, so that we can have it to the auditor well in advance of the deadline. And that also gives us, if there's some questionable discussion that we have issues with that slow things down, that still gives us a little bit of a cushion to get that done. But if we don't have that bid in by May, the way things work, we're never gonna get done in time. And that's probably my biggest frustration with being on council, is that things take so much longer to get done than, okay, if I wanna go to Kmart and buy something, I go and buy it. I don't have to go through 6 bids and you know, I walk around and figure out what it is and buy it. So it's a little frustrating for me to.
It is, and we only do it every 5 years too.
And at the same time, I'm not real interested in the fact that what we did was, we said, okay, we're only gonna charge you, what would we say, $65 a month?
It wasn't that way.
What did it end up being? I forgot what it ended up being. Huh?
Is it 20? 180 a year.
It was $180 a year, is what we just passed.
No, we passed
No.
140.
We passed 140 a year, okay? So what we're doing is, we're saying, we're only gonna charge you 140, but if this bid comes in,
Right,
okay, at
Much higher.
180,
right.
okay, next year, we're gonna charge you 210 to make up for that 40, okay? And then we'll go down to 180. And I'm not real comfortable with that situation either, okay? And so I would rather see us, if we've got the option, we know it's gonna be 140, charge the 140, bill the 140, pay for the 140 to Dayton, but make sure that we have our bids in time
For next
and
year.
to make a correct decision on what we're gonna do.
Very good. Okay. Any other discussion on that?
I think we ought to put it out for bid and see what comes back.
Can we wait till May? Why?
Well, I think it would be a good option to see what we have, and if we have to wait till next year to exercise that bid, we have it there in front of us.
But if we do it in May, we will have it in front of us by the time we have the thing going to the county, assessment to the county. So May is not that far away. And we already know the perimeters. We've talked a lot about the perimeters of how we want to bid. So unless somebody really changes their mind on things, those perimeters are all set. And I tend to agree that it'd be a smoother.
It would be a smoother transition to wait and do it next year. I agree, because we don't know what those numbers are
We
going to
don't.
be. We're guessing, and we're playing with the taxpayers' money.
Exactly.
However,
We
though,
don't do that.
I'm just not real happy with the city, the Dayton service that they give us in the past. Well, here's the gentleman we can. I know. Since we complained here a couple weeks ago, the service has improved. But we approved their contract for another year, it's going to go back to the way it was.
Well,
Yeah,
it
it's
better
very
not.
possible it could. I'm not saying it's going to.
It better not. What was the question?
Before we were discussing about where it would be 25 cents more, and then same the following year.
That is what the option says?
Well, the first term renewal rate, currently it's $11.50 a month. The first term renewal rate, so this would be for 2013, is $11.75. And then it goes up another 25 cents. The second renewal term, which would be 2014, so that would be $12. And then the third renewal, which would be 2015, would be $12.25.
It's right there.
Well, I'm not, to me, we know that it's going to be 11, what'd you say, 11.50 for next
certified for next year. And if we, and we just, we move on with that.
Move on with that.
But if we're concerned about the services that we're getting for our constituents, then we need to put it out for
Step up
bid,
our-
but we need to have it in time so that we can make a good decision for the city. You know, if it's gonna go up to $14.50 or something like that, then we have to weigh that against the $12.25 or whatever, $12 or whatever it was.
Realistically, we're not going to be able to resolve a new trash service coming up this year because, you know, there's a lot of talk about what size of recycling containers we want.
Well,
And what kind of, you know, what we're willing to pay for that, and how often we wanna have our trash picked up.
that's all in the bid package. I'm not
I know,
saying,
it's
I'm
all
not
in the
saying
bid package.
change any of the bid package. I'm
Yeah.
saying put it out in March so that we have everything back in May so that we can make a decision, so that we have that decision made in time to get to the auditor, so we have a real number and we know what that number is.
I agree, that's,
I mean,
Okay.
that to me
Realistic.
makes the most sense
That
for
makes the most
us
sense to
all.
me. Okay, that Mr. Schott?
I'm all for it, let them fly for another year.
Ms. Campbell?
Not sure.
Okay,
Not
Mr. Kirk?
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the quality of the city of Dayton's service delivery. I'm concerned about citizen perceptions.
Right.
But you know, I do a 2-mile walk through our community every day, and I go through 3 neighborhoods. And I don't see the major service issues that citizens might call in to talk about as far as their perception. I did have breakfast this morning with a council member from another community that has several private haulers in their community, and they told me they have the same types of complaints from their citizens. And so it's a perception issue I think we have to address. Secondly, one of the things staff has told us is that there's some discussions going on between Riverside officials and officials in another community to perhaps join together in a joint trash hauling bid. And that other community is currently going through community survey to gather perceptions from their citizens. And it might be well for us to hold off on doing a new multi-year contract until we see where that's going to go, because that could lead us to either stabilizing our rates or maybe even improving our rates.
Right.
I'm content with exercising the option.
For 1 year?
That's all we have to do is 1 year at a time, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the issues that I've heard the complaints on, but the 2 big complaints are, put the trash can back where it was. And I know the wind blows and the snow flies, so sometimes it happens, but it's more than that. It's more than that. And the second thing is, please send out a recycling person and a trash caller. I've had more complaints about they're throwing it all into the trash. Even the recyclables are all being thrown in the trash. So, you know, if those 2, if you guys can please work on those 2 issues, that would be
I
appreciated.
think the problem one of the problems that arises there is that people throw stuff in the recyclables that's not recyclable, and the whole thing has to go into the regular trash. You can't send that to the recycle operation. You just have to throw it all in the concrete bag.
Hey, there's been a lot of complaints.
It's perception.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
would you want a motion
well, let's hear from Mr. Stover first.
for that 1 year?
Yeah, let's hear from Mr. Stover,
Over here?
Yes. please.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council member. I'm Fred Stovall, Director of Public Works for the City of Dayton. And I'm not gonna sit here and paint a picture. You're right, everything's been rosy with our contract. It hasn't, and we had some service delivery issues. Brian and I have had many discussions about those. We have addressed them. No, we haven't fixed all of them 200%. It was just even recently, Brian brought to my attention about the recycle issue. Mr. Rishi flushed that out with his work group, and it was in our error. We found employees that admitted they were putting the claim they wanna do it, they were trying to get off the job early. We dealt with those employees, and now we know that that problem is resolved, okay? The phone issue I know was brought up in the past. When we started in the beginning in 2010, I will admit, we had a long wait time. I had that not only with my customers here in Riverside, I had it with my customers in Jefferson Township, I had it in Dayton, because we didn't really have the proper phone system to deal with the influx of calls we had when we established the Public Works Call Center. And this year 12, we implemented a new voice system, voice over internet protocol phone system. Now we have top technology where one, we can monitor the calls, know how many people are waiting, how many reps I have on the phone, what's the time they've been waiting, and so forth. We're recording every call. So now Mr. Ritchie has better management tools, and he has accountability now to make sure that we're answering the calls in 2 minutes or less. That's the challenge my city managers put on me, not for your calls, for all the calls that come to the call center. So I think if you check with your people now, I think they're getting through the call center much faster. Everybody's getting through my call center much faster now. We do have some issues. I think we resolved about the container being put back. I think we pretty much have flushed that one out pretty well. I think all of you walking in your neighborhood and see it. I think we're there. The one thing I would recommend if we move forward this next year is that I have some kind of maybe communication when I get immediate feedback when concerns come up for containers not being put back or whatever the reason is. If those calls can some kind of way, either I get them directly to me or Richie, Mr. Ritchie, we establish that protocol so I can immediately follow up and deal with that issue right then and there and know is it legit or is it just a perception that's coming from our customers. That would be my best recommendation as we deal with this the next year. I mean, if we don't perform, I agree, then I have to hand it over to somebody else. I'm good with that. But I want to know that we're giving our best effort to do that. When we're not doing our best effort, then yeah, I have a problem with that. And I know we can deliver the service. I think we've got our employees on page now to understand what we must do if this is a process that we want to continue. So I think we have a new commitment to deliver the service and the quality that you expect. I think we're on that path, and I think we can maintain that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stoll. Any questions for Mr. Stoll? Yes.
I have two things. One, I'm gonna, something that I personally, well, not personally, but my wife went through, is that make sure that your call center folks are properly trained on what services Riverside gets versus what Dayton gets, because she was not treated properly, I feel, over the phone, and it was just some protocol stuff. And number two, and I don't know, do you have larger recycling bins than these? I've got the small little blue.
We do have 32 gallon.
Okay, and if we can get something into the city newsletter or some communication to folks that they can get bigger recycling bins, I think that may help both of us recycle more, because I know mine is, most of the time is overflowing, and so I'd rather than have stuff blow all over the neighborhood, I put it in my trash, which doesn't do either of us any good. So if folks knew that they could get the bigger recycling bin, I think a lot of them would take advantage of that. So I think we need to get that information.
Is that something that you
To our
would be?
I think that's going to be something we need to have a follow-up with
And that's,
Kowski, the city
it's
manager.
just information for y'all.
Well, your idea is pretty good, is why don't they just deliver to everybody?
Well,
And
no,
that would
I don't-
encourage recycling a
not-
little more
well,
too.
yes and
If
no.
you give them the bigger one.
Well, here's the problem.
Yeah,
I don't have that cost.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, Mr. Shock, I don't need a bigger one.
I don't, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't necessarily, I mean, if they've only got, I got a couple
I went
people
from
in their
7
family,
people
they don't
to
necessarily need the bigger one. And then the other question I have is, are those gentlemen, ladies that are working in the city of Riverside paying city of Riverside income tax? Or are they paying city of Dayton income tax?
That would have to be a question for, Mr. Garrett.
And I think
But
if they're working here more than 13 days a year, they should be paying our income tax first. They'll end up paying your.
And I think we need to flush that on, because I know those people who are here year round working in this area, so that's something I think we're gonna need to follow up. Do we rotate some people? I'm gonna put you on the spot, we'll flush that out.
Well, I don't think
That's
we
what
have
we need to
enough
flush out.
We need
to rotate them less than 13
Right.
minutes.
12 days.
Oh, you're talking about 12 days out of the year?
Yeah, they have to,
Oh,
if they work
okay.
at
They
least
work more than 12 days.
12 days out of the year
A week, a month, okay.
in our community, they should be paying our income tax.
Let me follow up on the first concern you brought up about the delivery of service. The windstorms seem to be a common thing for us now, and those are the ones I think been causing the issue. When I do a public announcement after we've had a windstorm in the city of Dayton, this is what we're doing for the city of Dayton. And that does cause some confusion, not only for Riverside, for Jefferson. What am I providing for you as far as picking up debris when we have these frequent windstorms that seem to be occurring every year now? So that's something, again, I think we need to flesh this out for the next year. What will be the established protocol for that?
I do have to say that I do like the way that the only holiday that is not picked up is Christmas, if Christmas is during the week. Most of the other haulers, I mean, my trash pickup day happens to be Monday, so it's really confusing, is it a holiday or isn't it a holiday, but I know that unless Christmas is Monday, I put my trash out on Monday and it doesn't matter, and I really do like that service.
I have to deal with that on my other side with the city, and that's why when I do the news releases, we try to make it very clear, and hope when you see the news release that you read them, because I try to make that distinction, because in Dayton, I don't pick up on a holiday.
Right.
So we go to the next day, and when we put that out, I'm putting that out to communicate
And
that
I'm
to
sure
Dayton.
probably in the next contract that may change.
Ms. Taylor, do you have a question?
No, I just have, no matter who we have, you're gonna have complaints, but with, he's trying to solve the problem.
Oh, they're not the same ones over.
Well,
Very good. Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
So you need a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to extend the Dayton's contract for 1 year.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Schock, second by Deputy Mayor Denning. Is there any discussion on the issue?
And is that we're gonna put
Right.
bids out in
Right.
I
March?
think
so
he's got
that-
that message. Yeah, I think he got that message.
Yeah, well,
It's a
Or-
good message.
I don't think it needs to be built into the motion,
Right.
but,
No,
because we'll have some timing issues, because there are price guarantee timelines and whatnot, so we've
Right.
got to.
Well, but I just wanna make sure that we have
We
that
don't get into
information
this
well in
position.
time to beat the auditor's situation that we
Right.
ran into this time.
Okay, any other discussion?
I don't, according to the law director, sir, we don't, just a formal motion. Sorry, the question was whether or not we needed formal legislation
Oh,
to be a
okay.
resolution.
Okay.
So,
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. So thank you, guys. Thanks for coming, and I know we'll see good results.
Guaranteed.
Very good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, very good. And Mr. Rumpke, or I'm from Mr. Rumpke, thank you for coming in and helping answer our questions. and
No,
those-
you guys made a good decision, seriously. Don't rush anything and get what you want, and they're doing a good job.
Wait, hold it.
you got a job offer?
Okay, very good, very good.
I need to
Okay,
change
there
my
are no other work session items, so we will be in recess until 22? Okay, we can do that, so 7:40. So everyone, please be back here by 7:40 so we can continue with our business meeting. We are in recess.